The Ghosts and Goblins franchise is without a doubt one of Capcom's best, from its brutal, unforgiving beginnings to its brutal spin-offs like Gargoyle's Quest or the Maximo series. And while I'm by no means that good at any of the games, that doesn't mean the titles are any less fun to play, especially Demon's Crest. So to celebrate this ghoulish time of the year, I couldn't think of a better time to talk about 4 cancelled entries into the franchise. Today on Gaming Mysteries, we'll be going over the cancelled Ghouls & Ghosts 64, Ghouls & Ghosts Online, Ghouls & Ghosts Match Fight, and the ill-fated Maximo 3. We'll start with the MMO because that's the concept I can't really conceive working at all, and sure enough, it didn't. But Ghouls & Ghosts Online was a title in development for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, GameCube, and PC back in 2003, and was being worked on by Game Factory. It was of course to be a massively multiplayer online game where players could, allegedly, roam vast medieval landscapes, team up and fight evil monsters, and build their characters' progress, and it would also feature text-based conversations, meaning I would have an excuse to use this ridiculous-looking thing again. Although none of these features were properly displayed, as when the game made its public debut in 2003, what people got instead was very early gameplay, featuring a generic town with generic houses, this gate thingy, and trees. All of which isn't particularly indicative of the source material at all, except for guy in armor cosplaying as Arthur, that is. But while the game lacked visuals, it was shown running with 25 people playing simultaneously, online. Or so they said. This group right here clearly got lost along the way, but imagine how much fun these people are having, standing there and or running around aimlessly, trying to spear one another. Plus, no enemies were included in this build, so no one would be distracted from the multiplayer experience with that silly gameplay thing. In any case, Game Factory promised that not all characters would be running around as Arthur, which is very reassuring, and that they planned to launch the game that same year. Which didn't really seem that likely, based on how crude it looked, and sure enough, the game didn't actually launch that year. But in December, Game Factory announced a closed beta for the title, along with its new, drastically different appearance, going with a more cutesy, cel-shaded, less bad-looking version of the game. It even got a new name, Ghouls & Ghosts Online 0. In 0, players would be able to not only play as Arthur, but a few other characters from the series and a slew of new original characters, which is really exciting. At this point, Game Factory slated the game for an early 2004 release, but not before its closed beta. A beta so closed that after it, the game vanished from the face of the earth. Not really sure if that was indicative of its quality, but it probably was. But not to fret, as Game Factory was working on yet another game based on the franchise that was slated to release after Ghouls & Ghosts Online. Said game being Ghouls & Ghosts Match Fight, which was supposed to be a one-on-one fighting game, which initially sounds neat because Capcom makes Street Fighter and I really like Street Fighter. But Capcom wasn't really developing this, Game Factory was. Also, I can't really conceive how this game would have worked either. Would you lose your armor in one hit and then turn into a skeleton after the second one? Unfortunately, the world will never know because Match Fight only got a name drop and was never actually shown off, which perhaps was for the best. Plus, you can play as Arthur and Firebrand in UMVC 3, so everything kinda worked out in the long run as far as I'm concerned. Next, we move on to the N64. In November of 1996, Capcom was showing off their would-be lineup for 1997, and among the titles they showed off was a very early version of what was allegedly at the time called Ghouls & Ghosts 64, in a playable state. The game took a page out of Super Mario 64's book, like so many other games during that time frame, and was allegedly pretty similar. Only you were running around as Arthur and probably dying a lot more often, which means things were on track. Although after the game was shown off, it quietly disappeared from the public eye for, at the time, unknown reasons, with most assuming that the game was simply cancelled, though behind the scenes this wasn't the case. After coming to the conclusion that the N64's limitations would in turn limit the team's creative freedom with the project, development was shifted from the N64 to the Dreamcast, which makes sense as, at the time, that was the most powerful console. But unfortunately, the good die young and the PlayStation 2 could play DVDs, so when Sega declared the Dreamcast dead, development shifted yet again, this time to the PlayStation 2 though, where the game would finally see a release as Maximo Ghosts to Glory. The title was well received, and thus we got a sequel with Army of Zin, a game that improved upon its predecessor in pretty much every way, and was an amazing game, deserving of a sequel, and promised one at the end of the actual game. Which is where the video gets really sad as we talk about the lost sequel, Maximo 3. Now, production of the title began right after the team finished Army of Zin. The story would have Maximo and friends heading off to search for Sophia in the far-off city of Mashhad, though along the way they have the misfortune of running into the Cult of Shoot, death worshippers who find the man who walks with death, or Grim, as an affront to their beliefs, resulting in Baron's death, Tinker being maimed, with Maximo and Grim being placed under a curse that merges the two together. You then set off to seek revenge and find a cure for Maximo's condition. With the new setting and grim beginnings came a new art style, dropping the cartoonish vibe of the previous titles in exchange for something far more gritty, and with the concept laid out, an early playable prototype of Maximo 3 was created, with a test level that would serve as a hub world for the game. Though at this point in development, it mostly served as an area for Maximo to test out all of his new abilities, as he had a ton, from being able to climb up walls using claws, using a crossbow gauntlet to grapple yourself to new areas, taking out enemies with your new flintlock rifle, and being able to lock onto them with an added lock-on mechanic. You'd also be able to tap in Grim's abilities in new ways, such as disguising yourself as the enemy to infiltrate their ranks, sliding up walls and flowing about like a shadow, as well as being able to free innocent people who also happen to be cursed. Though the Grim mechanics didn't actually make their way into this first bit of gameplay. With that said, it's clear to see Maximo 3 was a far more ambitious project than the previous titles, turning the series into a full-on action-adventure game in a similar style to The Legend of Zelda, with there being an emphasis on exploration, making the overall structure of the game far less linear and so very appealing. Maximo 3 was set to easily be the best game in the series, though life is very cruel, and so is Capcom sometimes, and with the less than stellar sales of the sequel Army of Zin, Capcom pulled the plug on the third game, just months after development began. But that was 4 cancelled entries into the Ghouls'n Goblins franchise. As far as online and match fight go, if the sarcasm didn't give it away, I couldn't care less about those 2 games. While losing yet another N64 game is a bummer on the other hand, not getting Maximo 3, especially after seeing how nicely the game was shaping up after just a few months of development time, is truly heartbreaking, as I have no doubt in my mind it would have gone on to be one of the best games for the PlayStation 2. So here's to you, Maximo. We miss you. I miss you. Someone misses you. This has been Gaming Mysteries. Thank you for watching. Hey guys, Yuriofwind here, and welcome back to Endslate, where my god, I've missed you guys. It's been, like, since the 15th, I think, since the last video. Yep, 15th, I just looked. 12:42 a.m. it went up. Stupid. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this video, though, which was a Gaming Mysteries on canceled Ghouls'n Goblins games that weren't actually named Ghouls'n Goblins, but they're part of the franchise, technically, so there you go. I hope you enjoyed the video, and now we're gonna move on to the Endslate things. Also, happy Halloween. This isn't a Halloween video, but happy Halloween. Just wanted to throw that out early. First up on Endslate, I'm gonna recommend the last video I did on this channel, which was a bullshit creepypasta story time on I'll Never Let You Leave. And then 2 other videos that are videos you can click on if you want, but you don't have to. But speaking of clicking on things, I just did a Gaming Mysteries, and if you would like to read more about, I don't know, Maximo 3, or other things, perhaps you should go over to Unseen64, where they have articles on canceled projects. And also, you can go to the cutting room floor, which I didn't go to while I was making this video, but still a fun site. As for the bottom of the screen, Nico does the art. You should follow him on his Twitter. He also made me a spooky Twitter avatar thingy, which is very spooky. Also, I have a Twitter. You can go to that if you want. I post about Kamen Rider constantly. And yeah, if you like the video and you want to subscribe or like or do the things people always ask you to do, you're free to do so, but I'm not going to force you into it awkwardly or any of that. Sorry, I'm distracted by my cat right now. Walking on my feet. Next time on Endslate, I'm in for something painful. So actually, I should be pretty happy next End Slate, because that'll be after the video, so... yeah. I love you. See you next time on End Slate.